Diamonds, watches, bracelets, oil paintings, fur coats, crackers, condensed milk, petroleum jelly, coffee. I fancy that I am new to the city, and in affairs de coeur, that I might contract an agreeable intimacy with you. Knowledge is power. She says you are fond of new faces. My dear, she said, you are going to be a very lucky girl. You are going to marry a rich man and get everything out of this life that you want. And that was true. But did she get everything that she wanted? Diamonds, watches, bracelets, oil paintings, fur coats, crackers, condensed milk, petroleum jelly, coffee. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Okay, so this story. Well, just before I pressed record, I was trying to think, what would be the best way to kind of describe this? Well, I mean, I don't suppose I really need to describe it because you'll get to know the story pretty quickly. I suppose, in a way, it feels like it's a little bit familiar to stories I've told before. I think if you think, this is the best way I could come up to think about it, right? This is rubbish, but this is the best I could come up with. A bit like if I was a recording artist and this was like my third album, right? There might be a song on it that you would go, there's kind of something similar to that on the first album. Oh yeah, there's kind of something similar on the second. It sort of maybe sounds like you maybe know it, but it's its own story. All of its own. And I'm so happy I found it because I think it's a great, great story. So I'm just going to get to it. I don't really know why we needed that explanation. We didn't really need that. But anyway, you got it. So if you are ready, my darlings of the night. Yes, are you ready? Okay. Let's go. Okay, one of the things I love about the old days is that people would be given names, titles, if you will, as a way of discussing them. So, you might be the man from the West, if you happen to be from the West, or the lady in the red dress, if you were wearing a red dress. You get the point. Well, the woman in our story is titled The Massachusetts Belle of the Ball. Well, that was what the elite society of New York called her when she got there and she was able to mix with the elite. But there was going to be a bit of work for the young woman to get there. So who are we talking about? Ida Wood. Right now, she's Ida Mayfield. And we're going to look at her journey to becoming Ida Wood. So, coming from Massachusetts, the 19-year-old hits New York City, and her first visit is to a fortune teller. So, into a fortune teller's called Your Fortune, Your Future. Ooh, what a mystical name. Love it. In Ida walks to Your Fortune, Your Future, and the fortune teller is immediately struck by the 19-year-old standing in front of her. She's well dressed, she's polite, she's beautiful, and she seems to have purpose. She seems to have a determination about her, which the fortune teller sees immediately, and so the reading begins. The fortune teller tells Ida, "You are going to be a very lucky girl. You're going to marry a rich man and get everything you want out of this life." And so with that, Ida leaves. Now, the next thing she's going to do is she is going to start her research. And what is her research? Well, it's mainly focused on the wealthy, the socialites, the powerful people of New York City, who she is going to set her sights on. And she does this by studying the newspapers and the social pages. She sees who's hot, who's in power, what business people are going about the city. She sort of gets all this knowledge that she can from newspapers and from kind of what she can pick up from people. Now she makes the choice of who she's going to set her sights on, and it's Benjamin Wood. Now I'll say this for Ida. She is not setting her sights low here. Oh no. She is bold at 19 years old in the choice of man that she is going to target. Benjamin Wood at the time was a politician, a business owner, and most famously, he was known for being the co-owner and editor of the New York Daily newspaper. So the Wood family that Benjamin belongs to, they're real power players. You know, they're really big up there in the elite New York. Benjamin Wood's brother, Fernando Wood, was the mayor of New York at this time. So of course there's then lots written about these people in the newspapers. Ida has lots to go on here. So lots of information at her fingertips. Now what else does she learn from her research? Well, partly research, partly gossip. She learns that whilst Benjamin Wood is married with kids, and of course is a well-known public figure, as is his wife, he's also a man who likes to take mistresses. And being a mistress is what Ida sets her sights on. A few of Benjamin Wood's ex-girlfriends spoke quite freely to the press about their affairs with him, and Ida had read all of these interviews. So she knows he's a man who likes to dabble in things outside of his marriage. So at 19 years old, she writes Benjamin Wood a letter, right? See what you think of this letter, right? May 28th, 1857, she writes, "Mr. Wood, Sir, having heard of you often, I venture to address you from hearing a young lady, one of your former loves, speak of you. She says you are fond of new faces. I fancy that as I am new to the city and in affairs de cour, that I might contract an agreeable intimacy with you, of as long a duration as you see fit to have. I believe that I am not extremely bad looking, nor disagreeable. Perhaps not quite as handsome as the lady with you at present, but I know a little more. And there is an old saying, knowledge is power. If you would wish an interview, address a letter to number 7 Broadway, P.O., New York, stating what time we may meet. Yours, Ida Mayfield. So that's the letter that she sent to Benjamin Wood. Now, it's quite formal in its tone, but I find that line that I might contract an agreeable intimacy with you of as long a duration as you saw fit to have. I find that weird. It's a bit odd. She's sort of saying, I'd quite like to get into a sexual relationship, but just for as long as you want. Honestly, that's fine. Okay. But Ida Mayfield, I think, seems to know what she is doing. She may be 19, but she has a good head on her shoulders. Affaire de cours, for you non-French speaking listeners, means love affair. So the letter reaches Benjamin, and he's interested. He's intrigued by this letter, so he agrees to meet her. They go for a walk in Central Park on a sunny afternoon, and Benjamin is quite taken by her beauty. He finds her all round quite elegant. Now, being the prominent co-owner and editor of a very prominent newspaper, a politician, a public figure, he's not likely to take any old mistress. You know, lots of women would love to be Benjamin Wood's mistress, but they're not all going to get the chance to do that. This mistress he was going to take would need to have some sort of class, some sort of standing, or be from good stock. Well, luckily, Ida tells him all about her family back in Massachusetts, and boy oh boy does she come from good stock. Her father is the owner of a sugar plant which does amazing trade. He runs this small empire which has quite a lot of employees back in Massachusetts. And her mother, well, her mother is an educated teacher who speaks 4 foreign languages and is also the cousin of a wealthy earl. So Benjamin's like, great. This girl comes from money. She's attractive and has very good manners. So Benjamin and Ida begin their relationship. She is 19 years old, he is 38. And for the next 10 years, she will be his mistress as he stays married. Now, for those 10 years, he doesn't make a secret of Ida. He takes her to some of the parties, some of the events that he's going to when his wife isn't around. He takes Ida. She gets to meet and mix with the rich and the powerful. And then his wife dies. Pretty quickly, soon after this, he moves Ida into the family home, and before long, she becomes his wife. By now she's 30 years old. And she is living it large. She is having a great old time. Because here she is. She's Ida Wood. She's married to this man. And over the next few years, they will be seen at every society party. She accompanies him on all of his business trips. They have a child together, a daughter they call Emma. No longer is she the mistress, but the very, very prominent wife. Not bad. Not bad for the girl who arrived at 19 and set her sights on this. She's got it. She's got what she wanted. It's what she does next that makes her story so interesting. Now, Benjamin Wood might have been very, very wealthy, and he was. The Wood family were millionaires many times over, but Benjamin had an expensive habit: gambling. He loved to play cards, poker, and things like poker. I don't really know card games, except Snap. I know Snap, but I don't really know any other card games apart from that. That's why I hesitated there, as if when I'd said poker, more games might come into my mind. But unfortunately, it was like poker and Snap. Those are the two games I know. Well, I don't even really know poker. Anyway, he knew many, Mr. Wood, let me tell you, and he gambled hard. Large amounts of money. And he would be found in some of the worst, dingiest, shadiest gambling halls where you could be in danger of losing thousands in a day. Actually, once he gets so caught up in the card game that he's playing that he bets the newspaper that he co-owns a business worth millions. He puts this up to be gambled away. Now, luckily, he wins that bet. But when Ida hears about this, she is not happy. And Ida will get involved with his gambling because she is the opposite with money. She is very, very good at saving it. She knows the value, right? She knows the value of the things that she and Benjamin own. The paintings, the furniture, the jewellery. It all amounts to a great fortune, and Ida makes sure that her husband can't get his hands on these things to gamble away. What she does is she gets boxes, and she puts boxes with jewellery in it, clothing in it, expensive paintings, and she puts it all into storage because she needs to start to take control of his spending, and this is how she does it. Now, obviously, he's got access to his own money, but what she's trying to do is cut him off from, gambling away things that they own together as a couple. His gambling becomes so bad that each day Ida would go to... Hang on, who's Ira? Her name's Ida. That's just what I like to call her. I've got a nickname for her. I just like to call her Ida sometimes. Sorry, I'll try that again. Basically, what I'm trying to say is Ida would wait outside of these dingy gambling halls for her husband, and when he would emerge, she would establish the most important piece of information. Did you win or did you lose? If he won and he had his winnings on him, she would take half as her share. She would also, I love this, she would add a penalty charge for making her wait outside of the club. I love it. She's charging him. She's hanging about in the streets waiting for him and then charging him for the privilege. If he lost, she would say to him, how much did you gamble that day? And he would tell her the figure. He would tell her honestly because he was very honest with her. She would then take that same amount from his personal account for herself. So, just to explain that a bit further, if, say Benjamin Wood had gambled $100 that day, right? He was gambling way, way more than that, but say he'd gambled $100 that day. If that's the figure that he told Ida, what she would do is she would go to his personal fund and withdraw $100 just as a payment to herself. What she'd actually done here was she'd devised a way to make sure that win or lose, she was regularly getting money from her husband. He once came home very, very drunk. He woke Ida up in the middle of the night to show her his day's winnings, which were $100,000, and he had it in cash. They spread the money all around the room, and they stayed awake for hours, drinking and celebrating his winnings. But not all days were like this. There were dark days when he lost a lot of money, and there was constant arguments. Benjamin Wood would say to Ida that it was unfortunate for her that he was her husband. He knew his gambling made them a lot of money, but it also lost them a lot of money. So during all of this, they remain being quite a prominent couple in society. And all through the sort of middle-aged part of their life, their daughter Emma grows up. Benjamin continues to be the editor of the New York Daily Press and a politician. She was 30 years old when she married Benjamin Wood. And when the year 1900 rolls around, Benjamin Wood becomes ill and he quite quickly dies. He's in his 80s by this point, and Ida is in her late 50s. Once he's dead and all of the money and the businesses and the newspaper is all signed over to Ida, she does a few different things. First of all, she takes on the role of editor at the newspaper and she runs it for a few years. Then she takes some of his businesses and she expands some of them. But after 9 years of this, she stops. She stops and she thinks, now that she's on her own, what is it that she really, really wants? Well, I guess it's less about what she wants and more about what she doesn't want. And what she doesn't want is this life. At 68 years old, Ida makes a decision. She's not actually interested in running the newspaper, in keeping the businesses going. And so she sells the newspaper for $250,000. That is a lot of cash. A lot of cash indeed. And here she is, Ida Wood. What will she do next? Well, whatever it is, she won't do it alone. She's got her daughter Emma. She's got her sister Mary. Now Mary has come from Massachusetts to live in New York with her sister Ida. So there's the three of them. One day while she's deciding what should she do, Ida walks into the local branch of her bank and she announces that she wants to close her account and she wants the money in cash. She puts it into a bag that she has brought with her and the Woods account is closed. So she has the money from the businesses and what's in the bank account. And with her sister Mary, her daughter Emma, she sells the home that her and Benjamin shared, she packs up 24 boxes of belongings and she takes a room at the Herald Square Hotel in Manhattan. Now, this is a nice hotel. And because there's 3 of them, she asks, can they be put into a suite with 2 bedrooms? And the hotels say, that's fine. They do this for her. They give her room 552. So, it has 2 bedrooms, a shared bathroom, a little lounge area, and not much else. But this'll do Ida and the other 2 just fine. The hotel receptionist who checks them in asks Ida how long she'll be staying, and she replies, I shall see how I like the atmosphere, and then I will decide. Well, the real answer to that question is that Ida Wood and the other 2 women would stay in that hotel suite for the next 24 years. It would become the only place that Ida wanted to be. Done with the outside world. Done with New York. She made room 552 of the Herald Square Hotel her home. It's just that Ida didn't tell anyone that was the plan. I don't even really know if Ida knew that was the plan, although this might say differently. When she packed up those boxes, when she had sold her and Benjamin's home, she split the 24 boxes in 2. 12 of the boxes went to the hotel basement, the hotel she's staying in, to be stored, and 12 went to a storage unit in the city. So I guess perhaps either she knew she was going to be in that room for a while, or forever. We don't know. But she knew that the boxes had to stay 12 of the boxes at least had to stay very close to where she was, and the other 12 had to be looked after in storage. Now, we don't really know what was going on in Ida's head at that time, but we do know a bit about what happened in those 24 years. For a start, in the outside world, the world that Ida no longer cared for, the elite society members who knew her, well, they just assumed that after the death of Benjamin, she'd just moved city and not told anyone. When the news spread that her bank account had been closed, well, that just added to the assumption that she'd moved away, left and gone somewhere else. Over time, the memory of her, the questions about her, they began to fade. People stopped asking about Ida Wood. I think what's so weird to think about is the people who did care at first, those who would maybe say class themselves as friends or good acquaintances of Ida, were literally drinking in the bar of the hotel, speculating that she'd left the city, they'd no idea where she was, but she was gone, and what they didn't know is that she was actually just a few floors above them, in a hotel room that she was slowly making into a prison for her and the other 2 females with her. Ida, not long after being at the hotel, refused any entry from the maids. She just point blank said no when they wanted to come in and clean the room, saying she would take care of it. Payments for her stay there would happen monthly, and Ida would push $1,000 once a month under the door as a payment. The payment would be collected by a staff member taken downstairs without any contact with Ida. Once a week, a bellhop bellhop. Once a week, a bellhop would come and ask Ida what groceries she needed. Again, this was all conducted through the door. Ida was not for letting anyone into that room, so she would speak through the door. Well, more often than not, actually what she did was pushed a piece of paper under the door. So she would ask for her groceries, which were things like condensed milk, crackers, coffee, and raw fish. Great, yeah. That's going to really help the smell in that hotel room. Some raw fish, yum. So Ida and her daughter Emma and her sister Mary, they'd made like a makeshift kitchen in their tiny hotel bathroom where they could cook food. It's lovely. It sounds absolutely gorgeous. The other thing that Ida would ask for weekly is a tub of petroleum jelly, or Vaseline, as you and I may know it. Now, the reason for this is because she would cover her face in petroleum jelly daily because she believed it kept the skin youthful. You know those old, like, there's loads of them, those like old beauty things that people used to do. I don't know, I mean, maybe that one worked. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I ever mentioned it, I think Marilyn Monroe used to do the same thing. It was petroleum jelly on the face. I don't know, there's a million of these old ones. Put 2 raw onions up your nose, that will help your forehead not have wrinkles. I don't know, there's all manner of those weird ones. Anyway, now obviously there's a lot of people who work in the hotel, right? So there's going to be a bit of gossip. So the maids would kind of whisper, and the waiters would kind of talk about room 552. But it just becomes this closed up room where the only activity is the monthly money for rent slipped under the door and the weekly groceries. No one sees into the room. No one sees what's going on behind closed doors. So the gossip spreads out of the hotel, and people who knew Ida start to hear that she's living in this room. And whether or not these people either don't believe it or don't care, nobody really goes to check. None of those people that she knew from her socialite days ever bother to go up and knock on that door. One of the other things that she asks for is a newspaper to be delivered daily so that she can still keep up with what's going on in the world. Now, the newspapers come every day, but they never leave. The room is filled with newspapers. Just to get a really clear visual of that, I did a little bit of maths. Ida moves into the room in about 1907. She will leave the room in 1931. That's 24 years. That, everybody, is 8,760 newspapers. And she keeps them in these rooms. Remember, this is not a huge suite that she's living in, okay? In the 24 years, Ida is forced twice to hand over the bed sheets, and it's only because the maid knocks on the door and will not leave until Ida passes through the door without opening it properly, but passes through the dirty sheets. Imagine having your bed sheets only cleaned once every 12 years. So what forces Ida out of the room? Well, it's not choice. I think Ida would have died in room 552. if the circumstances with the other two females hadn't changed. Ida's daughter, Emma, had begun to feel unwell a few years before, in about 1927, and she'd left the hotel room for a trip to the hospital alone. Ida stayed in the room with her sister Mary, waiting for Emma to come back. Only Emma never returned. So Ida and her sister Mary, they wait a few days, and when Emma doesn't come back, Ida accepts that her daughter must have died. That's why she's never returned. So now it's just the two sisters in the room. And this is what will eventually bring the 24 years of living this way to an end. Mary is unwell for a few days, and Ida is reluctant to tell her younger sister to visit a hospital, just in case she doesn't come back. However, March 15th, 1931, Ida does something she hasn't done in 24 years. She steps out of the hotel room, onto the corridor, and she shouts, "Maid, help. Come quickly. My sister is sick. Get a doctor. I think she's going to die." The room is then flooded with hotel staff. A doctor is called, and on the sofa lies Mary. She has been dead for a few hours. By now, Ida Wood is 93 years old, and she's upset. She's crying, she's asking everyone to leave the room. She doesn't want all these people. She just wants the doctor to come, take her dead sister away. That's all she wants. Now you can imagine the shock that people were in when they saw the state of this room. The manager of the hotel, this just blew my mind, right? The manager of the hotel has been the manager for 10 years. He had no idea Ida Wood lived in this room. He had no idea there were people here. Now, he'd been told room 552 is a storage room. That's why it's always locked. It doesn't concern you what's in that room, just leave it locked. Now, he's the manager, so maybe it kind of did concern him what was in that room, but one way or another, he never actually bothered to ever look in that room. So can you imagine his shock when he's like, what do you mean that there are 3 people living here and they've been here this length of time? But this manager's shock is just a drop in the ocean about the shock that's about to come in Ida Wood's story. Over the next few days, many people will pass through that room. And Ida, at 93, she talks quite freely. She tells them she is Ida Wood. She's the wife of Benjamin Wood. She tells them that she lives in this hotel room because, you see, she has no money. She could only afford to stay in this hotel. She couldn't afford to buy a house and live like other people. This is why she had to live in this hotel. But that's a complete lie. It's not true. Ida is loaded with cash. As will be discovered when a group of lawyers for the Wood family arrive and they begin to look through her belongings, and they find piles of cash. Hundreds of thousands of dollars stuffed into bags, hidden inside drawers. There's an old box of crackers at one point with $175,000 hidden inside the box of crackers. Remember I told you she'd gone to the bank and she'd closed her account and got that in cash? Well, the $1 million that she took from the bank that day, She took it in cash. She'd never left that room. So the money was with her. At her absolute distress, Ida is asked to move from the room that she's lived in to the floor below. She's crying and she's begging the hotel staff not to move her. She's saying to them, "Why are you moving me? I'm fine. I can pay for the room." But they're saying she needs to get out. And really the reason that they want Ida out of the room is because very quickly the story of her living in that room with rakes of cash gets out. And of course, if we know anything from any story that anyone's ever told, when there's money involved, the vultures come out. And they did. Relatives of the Benjamin Wood family appear claiming rights to the money, and lawyers for the Wood family appear. They're demanding that they should get some of the money. Now, at this point, nobody really knows actually how much money there is. They know there's a lot of it, but an actual amount, no one's really sure. At one point, someone's going through Ida's belongings and they find $500,000 wrapped up in an old nightgown. One of Ida's old nightgowns is just bundled up in the corner of the room, $500,000 in it. Letters start to arrive to the hotel from Massachusetts saying, "I am a relative of the Mayfield family, the sugar plant business, and I have rights to that money because I am a relative of Ida Wood." Now, Ida, like I said, she's 93, she's losing her eyesight, so sometimes these letters have to be read to her. One of the lawyers is reading her the letter that says, "I'm from Massachusetts, I'm part of the sugar plant dynasty, I should get some of this money," and she starts to laugh. And the lawyer is asking her, why is she laughing? Why does she think this is so funny? And she says, that letter can be burned because it's written by a liar. There is no Mayfield sugar plant in Massachusetts. I made that up. 93-year-old Ida Wood wasn't real. Well, the 93-year-old woman was, but she was in fact Ellen Walsh. She hadn't been born in Massachusetts to a wealthy family. Instead, she was the child of two Irish immigrants who moved to America when Ellen was 10 years old. She'd spent the first 10 years of her life in the Irish slums with a mother and a father who had not a penny to their name. But the family had moved to America, where her parents had taken low-paying jobs. Ellen Walsh had decided at a young age that she was going to set her sights high and she was going to get a powerful life. That was when she left her poor parents in Massachusetts and came to New York and decided she didn't want to be called Ellen Walsh anymore. So she invented a wealthy family history, told everyone her mother was this educated teacher, and she gave herself a new name, Ida Mayfield. When she's asked where did that come from, she doesn't really have a great answer. She just says, I don't know. Quite like the name Ida, and I thought Mayfield sounded rich, so I just made it up. And she just starts going by it, and soon that's it. That's her name. The more she talks, the more she reveals. Asked about her marriage to Benjamin Wood, she says, yeah, it was a good marriage, but, we never had any kids or anything like that. To which her lawyers say, "But you had a daughter, Emma." She says, "Oh no, that wasn't her daughter." Emma was in fact Ida's younger sister. She'd just come from Massachusetts when her sister had gotten rich, decided to move in, and Benjamin Wood went along with this. He just went along with the lie that this was their daughter. It wasn't. Ida had never had a child. They just pretended that this young girl was their daughter. Her sister Mary, the one who died in the hotel room, she'd just come along for the journey as well. So in actual fact, that whole time it was 3 sisters living in that room. So at 93 and finally telling the truth, now what to do with the money? Well, one of the first unfortunate things that's going to happen is Ida is declared incompetent, and the rights to control her own money are taken away from her. Now, this is ridiculous because she's actually not incompetent. She's not incompetent in the slightest. She knows exactly how much money she's got. She knows exactly where the money is. But because, like I said, the vultures want that money for themselves, they look at her and they think, how can we do this? I know, we'll say that she's senile. And Ida's like, I'm not senile. Like, I might be going a bit blind and I maybe need you to read things to me, but I'm certainly not senile. I've got it all going on up here. But when power and control is taken away from her, the 24 boxes that she put into storage are opened up, and inside the lawyers find all the stuff that she hid years ago. And we're talking diamonds, gold, valuable paintings, original letters from Abraham Lincoln to Benjamin Wood, clothing from all around the world made with the finest threads in the world, hundreds of thousands stashed away. She knew what was in every one of those boxes. There was a secret $2 million that she just never told anyone about. When Benjamin died, although he'd gambled, he still had quite a bit of money in a bank account, and he'd signed over in his will $2 million to Ida. She had that in cash, hidden in boxes. She just never told anyone about it. After a year of searching through everything, Ida was 94. She was allowed to stay in the hotel. She was given a new room, and she was given 24 hours a day care because since all of this had happened, her health had really begun to go downhill. One of the things that is so interesting that people will say about it is, even at 94, her face did not look 94. You know, she looked much, much younger than that. Do you know why? Petroleum jelly. Vaseline, that's why. I mean, I was mocking it as an old, beauty regime. Hey, get that Vaseline slapped on your face tonight if you want to look young. By the time she died at 94 of pneumonia, a total of 406 people had come forward to say that they had a stake in this fortune. This went to a very public and very nasty court case. Ida Wood was buried in New York, and 3 months after her burial, a judge finally decided what should happen with her money. 9 people who were actually related to her, some who lived in Ireland, some who lived in the USA, were given just short of $1 million each from her fortune. Ida died peacefully in the hotel that she had made her home. And after her death, going through her notes, scribbled in a small piece of paper, Ida had written the words told to her by the fortune teller when she was 19. You're going to be a very lucky girl. You're going to marry a rich man. You're going to get everything you want out of this life. And so ends the story. Well, so do you see what I mean now? Do you see what I'm talking about? Like, it's got kind of hints of... Who was the woman that I... Oh my god, do you remember I told this story about 20 billion years ago? Oh my god, what was her name? She was the miser. Hetty. I want to call her Hetty. Was her name Betty? Hetty, Betty, whatever. Hetty. She was called Hetty, I remember now. Her. This is not the same story, but there's kind of elements of it. Then there was the two hoarder brothers that I did as well, very, very, very early on. There was kind of elements of that, but yeah, hopefully what I said in the beginning now makes sense. You got those stories, but kind of Ida Wood's story is its own thing entirely. Anyway, I just thought that was fascinating. Fascinating. So there you go. Maybe you didn't think it was fascinating. Maybe you're like, I'll stop saying the word fascinating, but I didn't think it was that fascinating at all. Anyway, I'm sure you'll let me know, because you're never shy about letting me know. So please do, get in touch, let me know your thoughts. And until I speak to you again, okay? Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.